Hello everyone, very good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar, AO Alliance webinar on primary trauma care and fracture complication, organized by AO Alliance Core Committee Bangladesh. Today our topics are primary trauma care and management of polytrauma patients, ATLS, and complication of fractures. Uh, Today we have in our panel of experts, we have Professor Dr. Amjad Hussain, Professor of Orthopedics and AO Alliance Bangladesh representative, Professor Murtuza Chaudhary, Professor of Orthopedics, Bardem General Hospital and Medical College, and Professor Samarjit Barua, Professor of Orthopedics. Dr. Shubir Hussain and Dr. ATM Zulfikur Rahman are the speakers of today's session. And me, Dr. Shahnawaz Parvez, is serving as the moderator. Thank you everyone for joining us from the different part of Bangladesh and as well as from different part of globe. AO Alliance actually dedicated to improve the fracture care through the local capacity building. Actually, we see here hand by hand. Yes, we just go forward by placing the hand to the hand. AO Alliance actually an organization of AO Foundation which operate in low and middle income countries. Formerly it was AO Socio-Economic Committee or AOSEC. Now it is changed to AO Alliance. Scope and activities of AO Alliance is to improve the overall fracture care through the education, fellowship, clinical research, and clinical services. It actually helps to build the local capacity and the longer term programs, which actually main objective is to be sustainable. Sustainability is a very important issue. Dear participants, during the whole time, your mics will be turned off. And if you have some question or supplementation, please reach us through the chat box, which is located in the right lower part of this Zoom meeting window. And of course, we expect and welcome your valuable comments and feedbacks, which will definitely help us in our further improvement of these sorts of program. At this moment, I would like to request Dr. Shubir Hussain to present his topic, the primary trauma care and management of polytrauma patient ATLS. Sir, would you please start your presentation, sir?
Dear participant, respected panel experts, welcome and thank you for being with me in this AO Alliance webinar. I'm Dr. Shubir from Bangladesh, and my topic is primary trauma care and management of polytrauma patient and ATLS. Case scenario. Welcome, dear participant and respected panel of experts. Thank you be here with me in this AO Alliance webinar. I'm Dr. Shubir from Bangladesh, and today my topic is primary trauma care and management of polytrauma patients. Let's talk about a scenario in here from yesterday. 25 years old male, car driver with high speed head-on collision, brought by police ambulance, and heart rate was 110 per minute. Respiratory rate was 32 per minute. BP was 100 by 80 milliliter of mercury. He was failed. And bleeding wound left thigh and right leg deformity. Breathing was noisy and bruises on anterior chest wall. What is the sequence of priorities in this treatment? Should we identify the specific injuries before the initial management of the patient? Should we manage by single person or by team? Report to proceed. term ATLS and the polytrauma come to our mind. What is ATLS? Advanced Trauma Life Support is a protocol developed to standardize the initial evaluation and management of injured patients and avoid omission of potentially life-saving intervention. In US, they called it ATLS. In Australia, they called it Early Management of Severe Trauma (EMST), and UK, they call it PTC, Primary Trauma. Principle of trauma care: rapid, accurate, and physiologic assessment, and monitor by priority. Prepare for transfer to definitive care, and teamwork for optimal, safe patient care. There is 6 principles, 6 precepts of ATLS. Treat greatest threat to life first. Definitive diagnosis, less important. Physiologic approach. Time is of the essence. Do not further. And teamwork required for team to succeed. Team means trauma evaluation and management. Arnold B. Trunke described the trimodal distribution. There is first peak within second to minutes, and the second peak within minutes to hours due to subdural hematoma, rupture, liver split, or pelvic fracture. The third peak within days, weeks. And ATLS focuses on the second peak. What about the golden hour? The concept emphasizes the urgency of successful management is not intended to imply a fixed time period of 60 minutes. What about the emergency preparedness? Emergency preparedness should be a simple plan, common structure, disaster trial structure, and traffic control system. Teamwork, the team comprises of 4 doctors at least, initially 1 anesthetist, 1 orthopedic surgeon, 1 general surgeon, and 5 nurses and 1 radiographer. And what is the ideal role of trauma team? Role are pre-assigned and multidisciplinary. Clear direction and communication should be there. Pertinent findings verbalized in proper order. All team members know all findings, and they are rapid and efficient and calm and quiet. And what are the standard precautions? We should have cap, gown, gloves, mask, shoe covers, and goggles or face shield. Regarding code blue is one of the emergency procedure codes for medical emergencies. A single phone number is used for all code blues events. BARIM is practicing this code blue. And what about TRIAS? TRIAS is the treatment prioritization of multiple patients, sorting of patients according to ATLS, available resources, and other factors like salvageability. And primary TRIAS takes place in the field, and there is color coding: red, yellow, green, and black. And secondary TRIAS at medical facility to which patient are to be transferred. And how to TRIAS? Just go there and ask, can the patient walk? If it is yes, treatment can be delayed. But if he cannot walk, check for breathing. Is the patient breathing? If the answer is no, open the airway. Is he breathing now? If the answer is yes, immediate. And if this answer is no, patient is dead. Is the patient breathing? If the answer is yes, count the rate. If this is less than 10 or more than 30, treatment should be immediate. But if the respiratory rate is 10 to 30 per minute, then go for check the circulation. And check the circulation, just see the capillary refill, more than 2 seconds, treatment should be immediate. Is less than 2 seconds, is urgent. Two type of TRIAS situation is there. Multiple casualty incidents, the number and severity of injuries do not exceed ability of the facility. Patients whose survival is in doubt may need to be treated last. And mass casualty incidents, the number and severity of injuries exceed the capability of facility and staff. Patients with the greatest chance of survival and requiring the least expenditure of time, equipment, and supplies and personnel are managed first. And the ATLS sequence is like that: rapid primary survey, ABCDE and adjuncts, detailed secondary survey and re-evaluation, head-to-toe adjuncts, and safe transfer and definitive care. The primary survey should be priorities are same for all. The primary survey, A for airway, C spine protection and restriction of spinal motion. B is for breathing, life-threatening chest injury management. C for circulation, stop the bleeding and hemorrhage control. D for disability, brief neurologic exam, intracranial mass lesion recognition. And E for exposure, environment and body temperature. And F for fracture management. And there is a way in the hospital, how do we simply, quickly assess the patient in 10 seconds. Just go to the patient and ask the patient his or her name. Ask the patient what happened. And if the appropriate response, then it confirms that the air is patent, sufficient air reserve to permit speech, sufficient perfusion to preserve cerebration, and clear sensorium. And if the answer is inappropriate, response suggests affecting A, B, C, D, and requiring urgent interventions. And primary survey, airway, assess the airway patency and stridor, and resuscitate like this, chin lift, and then modified jaw thrust, remove any particulate matter if present, and then we go for oropharyngeal airway. If it is not sufficient, then go for LMA and go for definitive airway, tracheal intubation. If any difficulties in intubation, then go for needle thyroidotomy, or then for tracheostomy. But we should need cautious about the cervical spine injury. And we should assess the breathing. Chest rise and symmetry should be looked at. The breathing rate and effort should be looked out, and the color and the sensorium of the skins. And we should caution about the tension and open pneumothorax. And the resuscitation of breathing, like administered supplemental oxygen, tension pneumothorax should go for needle decompression, and open pneumothorax, there should be occlusive dressing, and reassess frequently. A needle decompression over the needle catheter at the 5th inch space, slightly anterior to the mid-axillary line. The second intercostal space needs decompression, may be unsuccessful for a patient with tension pneumothorax due to variable thickness of chest wall. That's why ATLS protocol come to 5th inch space. And for chest tube, for hemothorax, 28 to 32 effort chest tube should be given. And in case of open pneumothorax, 3-sided dressing must be given, not 4-sided, and chest tube insertion is a must. The pearl, a simple pneumothorax can be converted to a tension pneumothorax when a patient is intubated and positive pressure ventilation is provided before decompressing the pneumothorax with a chest tube. And about the C for circulation. Circulation is if there is hypovolemia, post-traumatic hypertension is there, rapid and steady pulse would be a sign of hypovolemia, and pale, cold, and coming skin. The assumption is 30% is blood loss is there. We should find the bleeding, and we avoid blind clamping of the hemorrhagic side. Please don't use tourniquet, use PSG, pneumatic, anti-shock garments. 1 liter of judicious fluid approach, a bolus of warmed isotonic solution, 1 liter for adults, and 20 ml per kg for pediatric, may be administered judicially. ATLS 10th edition updates. Infusion more than 1.5 liter of crystalloid fluid has been associated with increased mortality. Early control of external hemorrhage is pivotal to the management of injured patients. Hemorrhage class 3 and 4 present with coagulopathy due to blood loss, dilution from large volume of crystalloid fluid, resuscitation, or hypothermia. Never treat hypovolemic shock with vasopressor, steroid, or sodium. German trauma registry shows correlation between the base deficit, that is bicarbonate, and the transfusion protocol. And they showed that less than 6 to 10 milliequivalent base deficit, blood transfusion is a must. And class 4 is less than 10 milliequivalent per liter or less, massive transfusion protocol should be given. And class 3 and 4 hemorrhage, balanced resuscitation is a must. Early resuscitation with blood and blood products must be considered. And in case of pediatric trauma, initial 20 ml per kg bolus of isotonic crystalloid, followed by weight-based blood products resuscitation with 10 to 20 ml per kg of fresh frozen plasma and platelets. The massive transfusion, greater emphasis on more balanced products administration. Damage control resuscitation is needle decompression and tube thoracotomy, massive hemothorax volume resuscitation and tube thoracotomy, and cardiac tamponade is diagnosed by Beck's triad, hypotension, jugular vein distension, and muffled heart sound. And treatment is pericardiocentesis and direct operative repair. And D4 disability and neurological survey. And AVPU describes patient's level of consciousness, A for alert, V for response to vocal stimuli, P for response to painful stimuli, and E for unresponsiveness. And GCS score, we everybody know, eye-opening range 1 to 4, best motor response 1 to 6, verbal response 1 to 5, score E plus M plus V, best score 15, worst scores 3. And E for primary survey, exposure complete, undress the patient, remove helmet if present, and 2% is needed for removal of the helmet, look for visible palpable injuries, and log roll and protect the spine. And primary exposure should cautious with hypothermia. We should prevent hypothermia. And primary survey, F for fracture management. There is minor, moderate, serious, and severe. And severe life-threatening open long bone fractures or pelvic fracture with displacement or dislocation of major joints or multiple closed bone fractures or vascular injuries is a serious problem to be attended first. And there is primary adjuncts. We should look for vital signs, ABGs, pulse oximeter, urinary or gastric catheter, unless contraindicated. Urinary output should be measured, and we should go for ECG. And management, what is the end point of resuscitation? How do we assess this? We resuscitate good? Stable hemodynamics, stable oxygen saturation, lactate level below 2 millimole per liter, if patient with maxillofacial or head trauma should be presumed to have a injury, that is fracture and or ligament injury, and cervical spine motion must be restricted. C-spine secondary survey, palpate for tenderness, complete motor and sensory exam. We should go for look the reflexes, and C-spine imaging, there is a rule, CCR rule. CCR rule is Canadian cervical spine, rule for alert GCS 15 patient and stable trauma patient in whom cervical spine injury is a concern. If the patient's age is more than 65 years and he is a mechanism of injury, fall from height or motor vehicle accident, or he has a history of paresthesia and extremities, will go for radiograph of cervical spine. Otherwise, no necessary to hurry to do the cervical spine X-ray. And key myotomes are used to evaluate the level of motor functions. And secondary surveys inspect, auscultate, palpate, percuss, re-evaluate frequently, and in this time we can go for chest X-ray. And there is always some miss injuries, and secondary survey will close that. Secondary survey abdomen, inspect, auscultate, palpate, percuss. Palpation of prostate gland no longer recommended for urethral injury, and we can go for special tests like FAST, focal abdominal sonographic test, or diagnostic peritoneal lavage or CT. Secondary survey musculoskeletal, and we usually consider life greater than limb in the initial treatment of polytrauma patient. Care of the orthopedic injuries does impact the mortality. However, orthopedic urgencies and emergencies must be treated with overall context of polytraumatized patient's condition. Pelvic fracture usually is a major source of hemorrhage, and resuscitation is by volume and blood and need pelvic wrap or external fixator. Pelvic fracture can be suspected by the identification of ecchymosis over the iliac wings, pubis, labia, or scutum. Pain on palpation of the pelvic ring is an important findings in alert patient. Apply or readjust appropriate splinting device for extremity fractures. Maintain inline immobilization and administer tetanus immunization. Occult compartment syndrome, especially with altered level of consciousness patient or hypertensive patient, and examine patient's back must. An antibiotic regime for open fractures, for Gastilo 1 and Gastilo 2, first generation cephalosporin is okay. If the patient is allergic to penicillin group, because we should be very much suspicious, evaluation and continuous monitoring, recognize patient if deteriorate. And the term is polytrauma is a syndrome of multiple injuries exceeding a defined severity. Injury severity score is if more than 17, with sequential systemic reaction that may lead to dysfunction of failure of remote organs and vital systems, which may have not themselves been directly injured. There is several scoring system for polytrauma, abbreviated injury scale AIS, injury severity scale ISS, or Glasgow Coma scale. And the pathophysiology is the first hit and second hit. The first hit with the surgeon, we do not have any control, but in the second hit, we have the control. We have, if we give the surgical load before the recovery period, the organ failure and ARDS and MORTs will be there and patient will die. And after polytrauma patient resuscitation, if the patient is okay, normal, we can go for early total care in day 1. If there is partial resuscitated, we can go for damage control. And if the resuscitation doesn't okay, then life-saving surgery can be done. And window of opportunity for definitive surgery is usually 5 to 10 days, because in this period interleukin 6 is coming down, and that is the main culprit of ARDS and MOTS. And pathophysiology, there is multiple cytokines and monocytes, etc., giving the surge and curse, and they giving the second hit. What are we trying to avoid in care of polytrauma patient? We are trying to avoid multi-organ failure because it is high incidence of mortality and imbalance between pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory mediators. And we are avoiding ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. It is acute onset, partial oxygen pressure divided by FiO2 less than 200, and bilateral infiltrates on X-ray if we do it. An orthopedic management polytrauma patient, if he's stable, we can go for early total care. If unstable, we go for damage control surgery. And in extremes, when patient have to go for ICU care, then we'll go a distractor X-fix. If the patient is borderline, hemorrhage control and or decompression in the emergency room, secondary survey. If the patient is stable, we'll go for early total care. If it's uncertain, we'll go for damage control orthopedics. Do not kill your borderline patient by early total care. Help them to live by damage control orthopedics. Give them the chance to fight another day. Damage control orthopedics approach to treating polytrauma patient with the goal of minimizing the impact of second hit. Indication of damage control surgery is physiologic criteria: blunt trauma, hypothermia, coagulopathy, shock or blood loss, soft tissue injury, 4 vicious cycle. And the penetrating trauma, in case of penetrating trauma, hypothermia, coagulopathy and acidosis, the lethal triad. In this case, we go for damage control orthopedics. And the complex pattern of severe injuries like expecting major blood loss and long reconstructive procedure in physiologically unstable patient, then we go for damage control surgery. When do we fix the fracture in polytrauma patient? Early total care or damage control orthopedics? 24 to 72 hours period after the initial injury appears to be the most at-risk time. And damage control orthopedics decrease the chance of second hit, but early total care stabilizes fracture and bleeding prior to the 24 to 72 hours high-risk period. Indication of early total care, we can go for early total care in case of stable hemodynamics, no hyperemia, lactate is less than 2 millimole per liter, and normal coagulation and urinary output more than 1 ml per kg per hour. Damage control orthopedics, a current concept is stop ongoing damage, release compartments, reduce dislocation, decrease open wounds, stabilize long bone pelvis. Stabilize long bones like initial early external fixator, and we should stabilize the physiology, prevent onset of lethal triad, coagulopathy, acidosis, and hypothermia. Definitive stabilization, staged intermedullary fixation or MIPO. And we should go for control hemorrhage, fluid resuscitation. We can go for fast or diagnostic peritoneal levels. We can go for X-ray pelvis, chest X-ray, X-ray cervical spine, lateral view, and we can go re-evaluate. We assess BP, urine output, we assess ABG and interleukin 6 level. Key takeaways: an initial bolus of 1 liter, 1 saline of adult trauma resuscitation. Over-aggressive fluid resuscitation increases mortality. Massive transfusion protocol with blood components prevent coagulopathy. Tranexamic acid may be administered to severely injured patient in field. Urine output is of great way to measure fluid resuscitation effort. Treat great threat is to life first, damage control orthopedics in unstable patients, knowledge and skill for a specific condition. We should know the do's and don'ts, and we'll approach teamwork. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for a nice and informative presentation. And we actually have got some question in hand. Uh, okay. What is the massive blood transfusion protocol? Someone asked about this. Sir.
The massive transmission.
I'd like to. Sir. Please, Dr. Shubir sir, please proceed to the question.
Okay. The German registry, they actually parameter class 1, class 2, class 3, and class 4 hemorrhage. They actually classified these by bicarbonate deficit, because we cannot measure how much percentage of blood is lost in the field. It can be 30%, and when the patient come to the ER, it maybe 5% blood is lost. So they evaluate by bicarbonate deficit, and it is very simple way to do it by ABG. And if it is bicarbonate deficit is less than 10 milliequivalent, less than 10 milliequivalent deficit, then massive transfusion protocol is administered. And the massive transfusion protocol is 1:1:1 ratio. One portion of plasma, one portion of RBC, and one portion of RBC and platelets. It's a separate way they gave it alternately. Otherwise, it will produce any coagulopathy.
Yeah. Somebody, Dr. Subir. Subir, somebody asked you the next question, the definition of polytrauma. Can you explain it? Can you a little bit elaborate it? Polytrauma, what is called polytrauma, or how to define polytrauma? I mean, somebody has asked this question, Taina?
Sir.
Somebody has asked this question.
Polytrauma is a syndrome of multiple injuries exceeding a defined severity, injury severity score more than 17. We should, if we declare a patient a polytrauma, we should go for the injury severity score more than 17 with sequential systemic reaction. Is a systemic reaction problem. That is inflammatory mediators and anti-inflammatory mediators. They interact and they problem the vital organs. The vital organs may not injured in the initial stage, but in polytrauma patient, the vital organs is gradually injured.
Yeah, let me add you a little bit. Basically, polytrauma should be defined as when the perfusion of the body perfusion is impaired. Whatever injury is there, maybe the whole body is injured, but his perfusion is well maintained. That is not polytrauma. Polytrauma when there is one of the example has been explained by some papers article that perfusion when impaired, that is also after trauma or after so many bodily injury. So there may be polytrauma may be defined as the impairment of the perfusion, and another is may be defined as the two or more than two vital organs or two parts of different parts of the body, including two vital organs, and injured. And that may be also called polytrauma. But there is nothing like that you have to define in a different way. You can define it well. So you have given the definition from Germany. That's good. But basically, we can define also in other way.
Sir, this is definition of ATLS team. Sir.
ATLS, well, good. That's good. Different. It has been differentially. A different person has defined it. Dr. Mohesh is here. Can he add something? Our senior, the colleague from Nepal.
Thank you, sir. Can I talk?
Yeah, Mahesh is here.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, please.
It will be even better if I give another question, sir. Someone asked, in case of grade 4 shock, will we go for massive blood transfusion or balanced transfusion? Dr. Mahesh sir, Mahesh Srivastava sir.
Yes, yes. Mahesh sir.
Sir, what is the question? Sorry, I did not listen.
Yeah, sir. Question was, in grade 4 shock, will you go for massive transfusion or balanced transfusion?
I think I will prefer to go for massive transfusion. So it depends on. So that is my answer. I am not sure about that. So maybe the other panelists will explain in much better way.
Yeah. Anybody like to add anything? Amarjit Bodua?
Yes, sir.
Amarjit Bodua is here.
It is, yeah, sir. Massive transfusion. Exactly. There is. We will go for the massive transfusion, and how much blood will you go for the massive transfusion? So far, I know from the journal that is 10 units of blood maybe transfused at the initial stage for the massive blood transfusion. In between 2 or 3, we can go for the calcium carbonate injection to. Okay, sir. And if we go for some of their and about the balanced transfusion, I have an idea about it, but I think so. The massive transfusion, we will never go for not more than 10 units of blood at a time. But we should apply the calcium gluconate injection after 2 or 3 transfusion.
Okay. We have got another. Murtaza Kayam Chaudhary is here. Can he add something, sir, in this small, with his shortest answer?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay.
Very well.
Thank you very much.
May I offer you another question, sir?
Okay.
No, I take to clear out.
Okay,
Because
sure,
he
sir.
can answer shortly, no problem. Short speech there than apni. Short.
Yeah. I'd like to thank first the presenter, Dr. Subir. He extremely a good presentation made covering every aspects of this subject. So about the polytrauma, till today there is no straightforward answer. But simply I like to add one thing: at least one injury should be life-threatening. If not a injury is life-threatening, there may be multiple. It is multi-trauma. But polytrauma, at least one injury must be life-threatening. This is simple. And in polytrauma cases, the lactate assessment in the blood is very important, which we must give emphasis, because lactate assessment give an idea whether it is already we covered biochemical changes in the body already, this acidosis already managed or not. One. Number two, about the
blood transfusion.
Massive transfusion. Massive transfusion have two definitions. One, some are sent 5 units, 5 to 7 units within 24 hours. And some says if it is about even 5 units within an hour. So it is very true. And in this respect, massive transfusion for this, initially in primary management, 2 cannula, large cannula in 2 limbs is indicated. When in the C, it can be added in the C, ABCD, C, the 2 cannula at this time. And massive transfusion is not a straightforward. You must stop bleeding if there is some obvious bleeding. And in the pelvis, that is pelvic binder. And if open fractures, even a tourniquet is also with recording of the time is indicated in a severe injury in the limbs. So one by one massive transfusion, side by side loss prevention is really important. So I think it is very going well. We have limited time. We proceed. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Another few questions. You can answer in short time. Who is the team leader in ATLS response team? And X-ray chest is the part of secondary survey. And any time interval between recheck and ABCD. There's the 3 questions. I think our panelists can answer it very shortly. Amjad sir, please focus on light on that. Who will be the ATLS team leader, and what will be the time difference between ABCD and secondary survey?
Basically, the team leader should be who is in the emergency room or the hospital. Whenever the patient comes, it is the different places in different protocol. Like in England, the general surgeons are the team leader. In our parts of the world, the orthopedic surgeons are the team leader, because in England or in that part of the world, The orthopedic surgeon doesn't take the burden of going in the night or doing it. Somebody trauma surgeon takes that after doing, I mean, training in the trauma business management, ATLS and this and that, and they take the responsibility. So here basically we take the responsibility in Bangladesh because we have been trained in that way, and our general surgeons are not been trained to manage all these things. We rather initially take it, and then we manage the ABCD evaluation and go for calling other colleagues like general surgeons or neurosurgeons or the other surgeons. That way we manage here in Bangladesh. I think better because trauma is part of the trauma of the orthopedics. So orthopedics should be the manager, and then he will coordinate with the other immediately to save the life of the patient. Okay, thank you.
I like to say something, if possible.
Short করে বলেন।
See, it is nowadays in many countries the emergency care service consultants are coming, and
Trauma
it is
care.
up to them to care because orthopedics come a bit later because the limbs mostly, except 3 conditions, we have no emergency really. One is the vascular injury associated with fracture, where we have to invite our vascular surgeons. Number 1, immediate. The second one is the urgent. Urgent is in the compartment syndrome, we are involved. And the third one is the emergency in hours. Usually within 6 hours, the open fracture. Otherwise, our
time কম মুর্তজা ভাই টাইম কম আপনি যেটা বলেছেন সেটা হলো আমি তো বলেছি যে ট্রমা
ঠিক আছে, it is all right.
ওইটাই কাজে আর দরকার নাই, আমাদের টাইম কম তো।
Okay, please proceed. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Shahnawaz, go ahead. Shahnawaz, go ahead.
Not hearing.
Hey, not hearing. ওই যে শুনতেছে না।
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for your participation. And before going to second presentation, I would like to request Dr. Fazlul Haq, sir, because he's waiting for with some sort of talkings, I think. Sir, please.
Okay, yeah, Julfikar, you please prepare your presentation by this time. Just one thing. Today's webinar, many participants from English-speaking Africa joined, especially from Nigeria, Gambia, and some neighbors countries, Darussalam, like this. We welcome all of you. And for your kind information, we will do this webinar in every Wednesday in the same time. You all are welcome. If you have any point to understanding problem, let us know with the chat box or with the WhatsApp. We will try to modify it. I welcome you all who join from the Africas. Okay, Julfikar, you please continue.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Parvez and Dr. Fazlul Haq, sir. Dear viewers, again, we welcome our AO Alliance webinar session. Already you know the topics today's. I am Dr. Etim Zulfikar Rahman, Dhaka, Bangladesh. My topic is fracture complication. Before going to fracture complication, I add or mention little bit 1 or 2 words about fracture. Nowadays, fracture is not a problem of bone or cartilage itself. So our recent definition of fracture is changed. It is a soft tissue injury where the bone or cartilage happens to be broken. Now go for the fracture complications. First early concern is vascular compromise, compartment syndrome, soft tissue injury, or open type of fracture. We can divide the complication according to the onset of time from the fracture: immediate, early, and late. And again, immediate, can be divided by generalized or systemic, and some local complication due to the large vessel injury, nerve injury or muscle or tendon injury, and generalized is hypovolemic shock. And early, again, it is systemic and local divided. Systemic is hypovolemic shock, ARDS, fat embolism, DVT, and pulmonary embolism. And local is infection and compartment syndrome. And late complication, which is related imperfect union of the fracture, like malunion, delayed union, and non-union. And other complication in late is plaster decubital ulcer, joint stiffness, avascular necrosis, reflex muscle dystrophy, osteomyelitis, and myositis ossificans. Now we just little bit touch the systemic complication of fracture, like hypovolemic shock. My previous speaker already told the hypovolemic shock and its management. Usually in long bone fracture, huge hemorrhage may cause hypovolemia, multiple injury causes the hypovolemia, and pelvic injury, especially polytrauma, causes the hypovolemia. It is externally revealed or internally revealed. And the second complication is generalized deep vein thrombosis and pulmonary embolism. It is also common in the long bone fracture, pelvic fracture, and spinal injury. In shows it is not our country and due to the fracture in the lower limbs, and 10% develop and pulmonary embolism. And 2% pulmonary embolism patient will die immediately. Clinically, we can recognize embolism can develop after 4 to 5 days after injury. First complaint, edema, erythema, and dilated vein in the leg. And low grade fever with increased pulse rate is another characteristics. Dilating and neck pain in the calf muscle. Treatment, bed rest elevation or limb elastic bandaging and active physiotherapy. Sometimes we use some drugs, loading drugs, heparin. Duration of the heparin time is 7 to 10 days, and shifted to heparin, warfarin. It continue for 6 to 12 months. And another option, subcutaneously, we can use low molecular weight heparin. Sometimes, in case of DVT, lead to severe impairment in blood supply, vascular bypass may need, or surgical intervention may need it. Next complication is fat embolism. In fact, it is infrequent complication of fracture in the long bone and pelvis also, and complex alteration of body hemostasis resulting from embolization of marrow fat globules. Main clinical manifestation is the acute respiratory insufficiency. It is based in clinically by Gertz criteria. Gertz criteria divided by major and minor form. Major, if present 2 major criteria and 1 minor form, it is established DVT, or it present 4 minor criteria, it established as a DVT. And with the help of other laboratory and radiological investigation, we can establish DVT. Major criteria like this: respiratory insufficiency, cerebral dysfunction, PTK, rash, and minor is pyrexia, tachycardia, retinal change, jaundice, and renal changes. And laboratory investigations, thrombocytopenia, presence of fat globules in urine, sputum, CSF, and blood, and fat globules in bronchoalveolar levels if possible. And sometimes X-ray shows diffuse bilateral patchy pulmonary infiltration like snowstorm appearance due to alveolar hemorrhage and edema. Management: first, respiratory support by oxygen, either by mask or nasal cannula, and additional some drugs, corticosteroid, heparin, and androxetin. Sometimes ethanol and alcohol also be used. Next complication is the osteomyelitis. We also know the bone infection, bone and joint infection is called osteomyelitis. It is due to the open or post-traumatic or post-operative wound infection, and it can be treated according to the antibiotic culture sensitivity, regular dressing, and regular intervention surgery. Now, our main concern is the major blood supply injury. Usually, major blood supply injuries occurs around the knee and elbow. Also, humeral and femoral shape fracture can happen in the muscular injury. Muscular injury may be cut out or torn or compression or contusion, either by initial injury or subsequent by bone fragment reduction procedure. The effect for transient or profound ischemia, tissue death, and peripheral gangrene. Clinically, we can diagnose by pain, paresthesia, numbness in the toes or fingers. Injured limb is cold and pale, sometimes cyanosed, and pulse is weak or absent. If vascular injury is suspected, immediate Doppler study or angiogram should be performed. Don't delay for vascular surgeon. Same as the vascular injury, some nerve injury is there. Same as vascular injury, nerve can be contused or compression or cut off. We can manage according to our nerve injury protocol. Now I will go for details. Some important or devastating complication due to fracture, like compartment syndrome. We know what is compartment syndrome. Increased compartment pressure or increased pressure within the closed osseous compartment, compromising the circulation and function of the tissue in that compartment. It is compartment syndrome. Everywhere can be happened after trauma, but some site is more common in our practice in orthopedic ground. Forearm bone fracture, leg bone fracture, femur fracture, scapular fracture, multiple fracture of hands and bones. What is consequence of the compartment syndrome? When increased pressure within the compartment syndrome compromise the circulation, leading to the further ischemia, and it may goes to vicious cycle and established, leading to muscle necrosis and nerve damage. Contracture develop and motor and sensory nerve paralysis. Usually, we can establish compartment syndrome by clinical experience or clinical sign. There is a 5P as a numeric, but most valuable P is the pain is disproportionately, which is not relieved by the regular analgesics, or passive staging test is causes the excruciating pain. It is the main symptom or clinical sign to assess the compartment syndrome, but other sign is paresthesia, pallor, paralysis, and pulse loss. In modern country or advanced country, they can use or they can assess the compartment pressure by weak catheter. It can be done in bedside also, but in our context or in our country, it is not available, or we cannot practice regularly our clinical assessment syndrome. There is some example for compartment syndrome. This is the supracondylar fracture of the humerus. This is the closed radius ulnar fracture, and bone setter done the compression bandage ultimately causes that gangrene, and that radius ulnar also treated, manually treated, and ultimately is the gangrene in the forearm and hand. It is another example, lower treated, bandage and plaster, and ultimately end result, the amputation. It is another example, the closed radius ulnar fracture and treated tight bandage or plaster or inadequately treated, and ultimately it end up with the Hoffman ischemia. It is another example of the leg bone fracture. It is closed initially and show the compartment syndrome, and it is managed in our orthopedics department, surgical decompression by fasciotomy. What is the treatment of compartment syndrome? It is an orthopedic emergency. Compartment syndrome is orthopedic emergency. It can be treated as much as early. Decompression the threatened compartment by remove the cast, bandage, or splint. Measurement the compartment pressure if possible, if below 40 millimeter, close observation and regular monitoring may be needed. If above 40 millimeter, immediate surgical decompression by fasciotomy. And subsequently wound closure by the skin graft or stage suture or primary closure. It is the forearm bone compartment syndrome and surgically remove the compartment by fasciotomy. This is the incision mark of fasciotomy of the forearm bone fracture compartment syndrome. It is done forearm and hand decompression also. Sometimes we already told if 40 millimeter or suspected impending compartment syndrome, we can wait for medical management or observation, remove or avoid circumferential bandage or cast if present, elevation of the affected limb above the heart level, or ensure patient is normotensive. This is the end result. Already I have shown the picture. The closed radial fracture end up with Hoffman ischemia. Another complication, imperfect union. We know when union is not achieved as a regular fashion or satisfactory, it goes to the imperfect. Imperfect means delayed union, non-union or malunion. When called delayed union, when fracture takes more than usual time to union, it says to go to delayed union. Some example, radiological example, the segmental fracture of tibia goes to usually delayed union one side is union. Osteomyelitis of the tibia, excessive traction any long bone causes delayed union, and intact fibula. Sometimes the two bone in the forearm or tibia fibula, when one bone is union, another bone goes to the delayed union or non-union. Next, imperfect union is non-union. What is non-union? It is actually not a concrete time of mention, but our definition in books, minimum 9 months has elapsed since injury and the fracture does not show any visible progressive sign of healing continuous for 3 months. It is called non-union. But some fracture from the day one, when it is displaced due to the peculiar or atypical blood supply, we can say it is non-union. Neck of femur, like neck of femur, scapular fracture, lower third of tibia fracture, lower third of ulnar fracture, lateral condyle displaced, lateral condyle of humerus fracture. What is clinical picture of the non-union? Painless abnormal mobility on the fracture side, no crepitation, deformity is there, wasting of limb, muscle. X-ray shows there is a gap between the fracture fragment and fracture margin is closed and decreased density of bone due to osteoporosis. Next, imperfect union is malunion, when fracture unites an unsatisfactory position, like unacceptable angulation, unacceptable rotation or shortening. Then fracture is said to be malunion. Malunion usually causes reduced fracture inadequately or whole reduction while healing process is ongoing. Sometimes in collapse, comminuted or osteoporotic bone causes malunion around the joint site. It is some clinical picture. Supracondylar fracture of the humerus invariably, when inadequately or badly treated, it goes to cubitus varus deformity. Lateral condyle of humerus, when tried to displace conservative treatment, it goes to cubitus valgus deformity. And on osteoporotic bone, Wallis fracture, malunion develop, and trochanteric fracture, when treated conservatively, it goes to malunion. Next complication related to fracture procedure healing. It is called fracture disease, like stiffness of the joint, muscle atrophy, skin atrophy. Joint stiffness is usually developed long time immobilization of the joint, especially intra-articular fracture or fracture around the joint may causes joint stiffness. If joint stiffness is needed, may need physiotherapy, active and passive physiotherapy for long time or up to joint mobilization may develop. Next complication is myositis ossificans. It is infrequently occurs in children bone around the elbow and knee. Maybe it is pathology is causes ossification of the hematoma around the fracture, resulting formation of mass of the bone. But now with our thought is there, if patient is unconscious or paralytic patient, it without local injury, a myositis ossification can be developed. Myositis ossification can be aggravated by massage. So don't go for massaging to myositis ossification patient side. And treatment is, this is the radiological picture around the knee. So many myositis formation up to the upper thigh and even in the trochanter. And next picture is the supracondylar fracture, myositis ossification develop, the flexor split of the elbow. If myositis develop in books, it is written, the up to maturation, you will establish the conservative method. If it is mechanically blocked after maturation, you can go for surgical, remove the mass. So our take-home message is fracture complication resulting from fracture itself or consequence of its treatment method, not unlikely. Muscular injury, compromise syndrome, immune-related problem are the early concern. And we are treating surgeon must be careful to identify it early as try to prevent as much as possible. Thank you for patient hearing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your very nice and enjoyable presentation over there. And topic was also attractive one. And I guess there is some local connection problem. Actually, the weather is here is not that much good, so there may be some disruption. Now we have got few questions here, and we can proceed to our panelists for this. I would like to invite Professor Samarjit Barua. Sir, I have a question for you. And what measures can be taken to prevent fat embolism?
Thank you, Dr. Shahnawaz. And first of all, thanks to Dr. Julfikar for his very informative and nice presentation. As you see, the fat embolism is a very common complications in long bone and pelvis fracture especially. So it can be prevented by the during the surgical procedure by meticulous and careful reaming of the, if the long bone is fractured, meticulous reaming of the femoral shaft. And another very recent advancement that using the vacuum or venting method can be able to reduce the fat embolism to enter into the systemic circulation. This is a very recent advancement, vacuum or venting technique. So if anything, can anybody say, especially Professor Amjad sir and Qayyum sir and others from Srivastava sir, they can tell or they can add something. For my side, these are the things I can assure you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Amjad sir, are you there? Professor Qayyum sir?
Yeah, I am hearing. Yes.
Can you please add something?
What is the real question? What is the real question?
Can you repeat? Yeah, sir. What measures can be taken to prevent fat embolism?
Yeah, the fat embolism you see in the, particularly in multiple injuries, a low grade of fat embolism occurs, which is usually done asymptomatic. Even in the fracture neck femurs also, a very low grade of fat embolism occurs, like micro fat embolism, which usually goes clinically asymptomatic. But in a massive fat embolism, you know, the pulmonary embolism is very, very serious affairs indeed. Now, from the very beginning, the immobilization of that part, number one. not going to do this specific treatment without stabilization of the patient, resuscitation of the patient. Number two, minimizing the reaming procedures and go for something like without reaming, maybe unreaming IM nail or other things. Number three, there are some studies of giving systemic steroids that reduce these things. Anticoagulation use also reduce things. But in some cases, really, it is there is still a good number of cases where pulmonary embolism and fatality develops. To minimize our thing is that the basic resuscitation, immobilization of fracture part, and the resuscitation, covering of the acidosis, and then go for the second hit is recommended. And in doubtful cases, and ICU support with anticoagulation and steroid is recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Professor Amjad, sir, are you there? I think your mic is
Yeah, I mean,
switched.
I
Yes,
like
sir,
to
okay.
I like to add here what Professor Murtaza Chaudhary said. It is your clinical diagnosis and it is your prompt action. Whenever you are suspecting something that a patient is well going on post-operatively or after surgery within 2 to 3 days or 1 day, suddenly he has developed some respiratory, dyspnea, some sort of discomfort, some sweating. You just think of that maybe a heart attack, maybe a coronary attack, or maybe a PE, pulmonary embolism. So immediately transfer the patient to ICU or to CCU and ECG do ECG and take action. Whatever he said, I do agree with that. This is important that you work to clinically, because I know one of my patients was standing, I was in the round, patient suddenly, sir, I've got my chest pain. What is, nothing wrong, everything is fine. I take him immediately to operation, ICU, and then it was found that she developed, that is pulmonary embolism. So after all measures, she could survive. But this is a very rare case, but we should know it. Thank you. Next. There are some questions.
Thank you, sir.
Shanawaz, there are some questions asked by
Yes,
some
sir.
the
Sir,
speaker. Let the speaker answer the question.
Yes, sir. I have
Then we can share.
I have collected that and I can present you, sir. So I can proceed to the question. Someone asked that amputation, in case of amputation, do we need any vascular surgeon for documenting for with trauma with major vessel injury if you go for an amputation?
In simple, it is the answer that if there is vascular surgeon available, avail him. Try to cast him. Try to put him in your field. And then if cannot, then you have to go accordingly. You show the party, this is the situation, cold, clammy limb, no way can be survived. So take the photograph and show the party. That is the only way. Okay, next.
I like to add something
Okay.
here. Yeah,
Sure.
you see, in case of any amputation, in urgency or even in routine cases also, it is recommended that at least 2 consultants should take view and decide the amputation, if possible. At least 2. Number 2, vascular surgeons, if vascular injury is there, he will opine for amputation. He is also a consultant to be there. And there is a mangle extremity scoring system that will guide you whether it is viable or better to go. And now in some are borderline cases, you really seen, very difficult, a lot of operations, many surgeries, repeated time, loss of money, and after some time, whether you will survive the limb with functional activity, or whether you go for amputation and put an artificial limb will be, it is matter of discussion involving the party. Thank you. So it is not so easy. Mangle extremity score is also not easy.
Sir, thank you, sir. One nice question is that what is the difference between callus and myositis ossificans, and is there any drug to prevent myositis, and how long to use it?
Let the speaker answer the question. Let the speaker answer the question.
Okay, sir. Sir, ATM Julfikur sir, are you there?
Zulfikar, he should answer because they're asking him.
I think
Kailash,
Zulfikar sir
Unmute him.
has
Unmute him.
switched. Yeah. He's already. Yeah, sir, please, sir.
Usually practice in our contrast or in our country, and acetabulum fracture, we can prevent myocytic ossification by indomethacin practice treatment. 75 milligram once daily up to 3 to 4 weeks. But other fracture myositis, we cannot use regularly to prevent the myositis for indomethacin. It is our practice. Sir, any added, sir, expert, sir?
Sir, one thing is for prevention of myositis ossificans, we should advise the patient and patient's party during the rehabilitation process. In which way we'll go for the exercises of the injured limb and other free parts of the body. And afterwards, when we'll discard the plaster or anything, how to mobilize the limb. Some distressful movement of the limb, injured limb, can enhance the formation of myositis ossificans. So it is not only the medicine, also the combined solution of both the patient attendant as well as the mobilization of the limb by the physiotherapy if needed.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mahesh is there.
Yes.
Yeah. Mahesh, come on.
Hi, sir. You know, myositis is more common in children in elbow injury. How it happens?
Exactly.
Because
Yes,
the hematoma, due to severe massage, regular massage,
clinical importance is mostly emphasized. Number one, excessive pain in relation to the injury. Injury is not correlating with the pain, excessive pain, not relieving by analgesia. And there is a passive stretching test, painful passive stretching of the toes and fingers. That's very significant. And if it does not improve, within 2 hours, it must be decompressed. And never close the decompressed wound. Keep it open. Closure after improvement by secondary suture or by skin graft. Never primary closure at least. And please don't elevate the limb or don't put that independent. It should be neutral with the heart level.
again, can
Sir,
I add
what will be
something,
the
sir?
ideal
Yeah,
time?
Mahesh.
Sure,
Sir,
Mr.
can I
Paul.
add? Yes. So what Dr.
Sure, sir.
Dr. Martuja has said, it is like clinically the odd P, it is that they are not reliable. Only 2 signs are reliable. Clinically, you don't have to measure the pressure, and
No.
everywhere it is not available. And moreover, it is not reliable also.
Reliable
So one
also.
sign is any pain not relieved by ordinary analgesic. Number 1, and when the passive stretching is painful. These are the 2 signs which can be clinically diagnosed as a acute compartment
Yes.
syndrome. And why passive stretching is painful? Because the muscle ischemia is there. So that muscle ischemia causing severe pain. So these are the only 2 reliable signs which can be diagnosed acute compartment syndrome.
I like to add a little bit here.
Yeah.
I like to add that the history should be taken also, because what type of our anaplaza, the garments that injury, most of the time this pressure over the limb, there is another called run over by the truck or whatever the vehicle. So history is important, that how it was happened. And next, whatever you said, that clinical suspicion of mind. I'm suspecting something abnormal. The pressure will be increasing.
One thing, can I get one point, sir? With Mahesh Srivastava sir's 2 points, pain on passive stretching of as well as the limb, the highly tense limb. That is one of the point. Yes.
And another thing, no drug. Why he said mild pain analgesic? I would say even mild, only mild, no heavy analgesic. I know one case where I had to go for amputation because my colleague had to go for severe, analgesic injection. So the pain was reduced subsequently, but the limb was totally gangrenous because plaster was there. it was not seen by the surgeon, and automatically, because of analgesic, after 3 days, when the foul smelling was coming, and then it was opened and said, seen that nothing is there, the limb is totally gangrenous, and we had to go for amputation. So remember that the release of all sorts of pressure. Yes, next.
So what will be the mild analgesic for this compartment syndrome? If we say, what will
Yeah,
be the
Mahesh,
what
first
generic-
of all, can you add mild analgesic means?
He's unmute. But Srivastava sir is unmute. Unmute him.
No, yeah, unmuted. Yeah, he's unmuted.
I am.
Yeah, okay, sir.
So usually in fracture cases, we prescribe analgesic plus anti-inflammatory drug. Not like paracetamol, it has got only analgesic property. Like Brufen, it has got analgesic as well as anti-inflammatory drug. So that is that any pain which is not relieved by ordinary analgesics. That is the point. And other is the passive stretching. Like most of the pain, usually the patient get relief of pain by prescribing ordinary analgesic like Brufen or something. In case of compartment syndrome, most of the time the patient do not get relief of pain by prescribing ordinary analgesic. In that case, you have to prescribe some severe analgesic drug, like drug
Continuous follow-up.
pathogene.
And continuous follow-up.
Okay.
Strict
Yes.
follow-up. And then see what he said, that tenseness.
Thank you, sir.
Somerjit Barua said,
Yeah. If the pain of the compartment syndrome is reduced by the heavy painkiller, there is a high doses painkiller, then at that time the patient will never complain of pain. During that period, you have to go for looking at the compartment, how tense it is. If you give some higher doses of painkiller, the pain will be relieved automatically. At least 90% pain will be relieved. So at that time, you will not
I think
categorize.
doctor, I mean, with pain,
Can I add something?
your tenseness, your clinical
Please proceed.
examination,
There is no time. Please
and
proceed.
then correlate it. Then find
Okay,
it.
sir. Let's take some question about the non-union. What are the radiological features of non-union, and when we can say the fracture is turned into a delayed union?
Acha. Can
Sir, Samarjit Barua, sir.
okay,
Can you ask me the question again?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ganesh,
What are
can
the
you-
radiological features
Samarjit,
of
no?
non-union?
Oh,
when
radiological
we-
features of non-union, especially non-union, the definition told by the Zulfikar, it is all right. There is a minimum 9 months has been elapsed after the fracture, and there will be no clinical, you will get no clinical signs of union. There will be pain over there. Sometimes there is no pain, and radiologically you will get no presence of callus in and around the fracture. So in that case, we will go this case, this side fracture is called the non-union. What is the another question?
Sir, when we can call the fracture to be a delayed union, or when we can
Delayed union, the time actually varies. In more or less, we called it 6 to 8 weeks or 3 months. If the fracture, there is a few callus present in between the fracture ends, both the. Then we will call it a delayed union. But the time actually varies. There is no specific time for this
Dr.
delayed
Shahnawaz, I'd
union.
like to add something here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you see, this established non-union is the radiological features, two types, hypertrophic non-union and atrophic non-union. If there is hypertrophic non-union, there will be sclerosis of the fracture ends. In atrophic non-union, there will be atrophy of the fracture ends. If it is established atrophy or hypertrophy, it is non-union. Before that, without sclerosis or atrophy, it is a delayed union. Already the usual time passed. Unless there is atrophy or sclerosis of the fracture ends, we cannot say it is non-union. It is a delayed union. So radiological, this is very important. Either sclerosis or atrophic, which type of non-union occurred.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you everyone for joining here. And actually, this was a very nice, lively, and informative session we have. Now, I think we can proceed to conclusion, and I would like to ask Professor Samarjit Barua to just have some remarks over the today's session, the two presentation, and the lively discussion. Please, sir, Dr. Samarjit Barua.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shahnawaz. This lively webinar is very much informative and good discussion we have gathered. We have see over here the two presenters, Dr. Subir Hossain and Dr. A.T.M. Zulfikar Rahman. Their presentation is very much informative and very much informative for us and as well as for the young orthopedic surgeons, especially ATLs and the complication of fracture. These two topics are we are facing daily in our daily practices, and the questions that have arisen, probably we are not able to answer all the questions as because of time shortage. The questions were very nice, and it was a very lovely discussion during this period from 3 to almost 4:30 p.m. And special thanks to all the overseas overseas orthopedic surgeons who joined from the abroad, and my heartfelt respect to Professor Srivastava sir and Amjad sir and Kayum sir, and as well as the most importantly the Fazlullah Kashim bhai for their good organization about this program. Yeah, Shahnaz, you are muted. All of them are muted. Unmute everybody. All are muted.
Anything to add? Hey, what happened? Is it okay? Closed? Dr. Fazlul, is it closed? Is it okay?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
এই শুনতে পাচ্ছো?
Sir.
শাহনাজ শুনতে পাচ্ছো?
Sir, yes, sir.
So topics are very beautiful topics. The present are well presented, but I would suggest them a little bit more practical. And then what is to me that the polytrauma is a very important and very our day-to-day practice. We need to manage these polytrauma cases as an orthopedic surgeon, trauma surgeon here in this country. So I would say that this is a really a good topic, and discussion over here. The participants, those who have participated, who asked questions, really very much enjoyable, and hopefully thank you, Dr. Subir, for presenting your nice presentation. And next is our what I like to add here, that we need to know more about polytrauma. Polytrauma is an unsettled issue. So and all the specialties need to talk. So well, we in our purview, in our system, in orthopedic understanding, we need to manage immediately. Next is Dr. Zulfikar Rahman. I know him very well. He has presented about this fracture. He has made definitely a good starting. He said that the fracture definition, that is the fracture is the soft tissue injury. Where we in AOA or AO or AOA, always we are talking about the biology, because we are not a carpenter, we are the gardener. So that is very important. And he has rightly mentioned that it is the soft tissue injury where the bone and cartilage have been broken, happen to be broken. Thank you so much. Regarding his final question, who has been answered by non-union, I would say that I would add a little bit what Professor Kayum Choudhury said and Kamarjit Badua said, that it depends on also bone. If we do, our metacarpal bone has got a small time, 3 weeks to 6 weeks. Again on the TBF, it takes maybe 6 months. So bone to bone is varies. And so our definition will be varied, that when the non-union And when the delayed union, we should think about also whose bone is involved. So all this, I mean, with all this thing, I like to thank you so much, all the participants, all the I mean, the presenter, panelists, and the viewers. So everybody, thank you from my side. Thank you all, and let us join the
Thank
next
you, sir.
session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Murtuza Chaudhuri, sir. Please have some
Yeah.
concluding remarks for the last minute, sir. Actually,
Yeah.
we have no time.
Yeah, I like to just say one thing.
Sir.
The trauma management is not so easy. It needs a teamwork and a setup. So unless the setup is there and bringing the patient from the incidents to the hospital and then subsequent surgery and post-operative and rehabilitation, it is a teamwork covering a lot of setup. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice compliment. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in your busy times and in such a condition. We have tried to arrange this webinar. We hope it will mean a lot. And our next webinar will be on 10th June on fracture stability. Hope you all join there and hope to see you there. And we are now concluding. Goodbye.